Do Chaos Spawn generate victory in Tides of Torment? Since each type only uses a single type of Chaos Spawn, this video will focus on the Undivided version, but will touch upon the other varieties for comparison. This is trying to add to the video's value without bogging us down in 10 tech trees. Spawn are relevant for Sayl the Faithless because they're the other type of Chaos unit he can recruit, just the straight up Undivided one. Okay, intro over. Let's spawn some mobs. Recruited for 900 gold and 225 upkeep, your basic vanilla version comes on Ultra Scale with 16 entities and 8,768 health between them, which isn't bad at all. Unit scale affects the number of entities, and therefore unit health, not the health per entity. At least not here. Armor is 10, which is bad. It's monstrously horror bad levels of bad. Moreover, there are no resistances inherent to it. The unit is Leadership 100, and, spoiler, this is an actual unbreakable unit. They will fight to the last spawn. Speed 42 and Charge Speed 78 are far from the most nimble, monstrous infantry, but it will do, considering our Speed 28 of Chaos Warriors. Let's stop right here and look at what we have. The unit is really bad for armor, has entirely decent health, is decently but not tremendously fast, and is unbreakable. It's like a cross between trolls and crypt horrors, and while crypt horrors will start killing themselves off by crumbling when they lose morale, and that's a difference. In the sense neither will flee the battle per se, they are similar. If it's an infantry fight, Spawn are first in and never out. They'll either win or they'll die. Those are your options. Let's just keep in mind they aren't using Rampage. If you tell them to pull out, they pull out. Melee attack begins at 36. This is not terrible. I eternally compare to Empire Swordsmen because they're the kind of unit that, if you have less than they do, you're weak. If you have more, you're at least better than half decent at that thing. This is as good as regular Chaos Warriors melee attack. Attack interval 3.8 is faster than usual and tracks with a good deal of monstrous infantry. Splash target size is medium, and max target splashed in the new system is 5. And that is a lot. Let's hold that thought for about 20 seconds. Melee defense of 28 is not nearly as bad as you'd think it is, around the level of Orc Boys. Weapon strength 170. 170 is split base 120 and armor piercing 50. This figure was recently buffed. Charge bonus is a very decent 35, and mass is 1500. And now we discuss the bugbear in the glade, the animations. Spawn are notorious for having relatively stubby arms that flail around while the model is stationary and do not have the same range as a lot of other stuff. Depending on how deep in an enemy formation one model is, one really might hit 5 targets with such attacks, or it might not. The bigger problem is the charging animations because they're just nowhere near as good as, let's say, rat ogres. So a lot of the time, they're hitting a lot fewer than this programmed game engine maximum of 5 targets damaged. CA decided to rebalance Spawn around the brute force method of adjusting their damage numbers rather than a fundamental rework of the animations, which is time and money they were spending somewhere else, and besides, you want to at least try the easier fix and see how it shakes out. No Warp Flame imbued javelin chucked from my end. So what does this do? It's a dice roll. Some of the time, a spawn is going to be dividing 170 damage before we boost it 5 ways. So 34 damage to 5 Empire Swordsmen. That's not enough to half kill them. It would half kill crossbowmen, I think. Some of the time, it'll be 170 damage to a single target, like a Captain of the Empire, by one spawn entity in a unit of 16. Granted, 120 of that is base damage, but 50 of it isn't, and that will get through. But of course, not all 16 are going to be hitting the Empire Captain, it's just not physically possible. So the brute force rebalancing has Spawn able to do horrific, Slaanesh level obscene damage against our Order-tied foes, but it's a chaos-imbued dice roll what kind of damage happens, whether we get overkill or underkill in a mixed melee fight, and basically we have no idea what's going to happen moment to moment. But Spawn weren't terrible before, and hitting harder and through armor more consistently starts to make them reliable in the long run. The line you draw between the graph highs and lows trends higher than before. That is good. Just to fit it in somewhere, the unit can hide in forest, causes fear, and is considered a siege attacker. Whether that works out for you, who knows, but it means turn 1 attacks without a siege engine against walled settlements, and bonus damage versus buildings like city gates, but Spawn aren't the most slender units, so how much they bash the gates, shoulder to shoulder, I don't know. Having established this, let's go through some variants. Whatever else Morgor is going to do with/to them later, Chaos Spawn for Beastmen differ a bit, and I mean besides 0 upkeep in a unit cap system. Each and every blow inflicts poison. That's new. This is balanced around their weapon strength 150, split base 102, and armor piercing 48, so 90% of what they lost is base damage, and they kept nearly all of the armor piercing, which is quite good for them, honestly. This isn't a faction where the Gore Bowl exists. They'll be fine. Jalapeno flavor! Spawn of Khorne take 1050 gold to recruit and 263 upkeep to babysit. Armor is 30 rather than 10. It also has 35% spell resistance. Thanks, Skull Throne. Each attack from this spawn is flaming, so spicy hot. Furthermore, for whatever reason, the unit is listed as high threat, meaning splash attacks should be completely ineffective against them, and all splashing attacks will do their full damage to one entity for better or worse, if they were going to splash large targets to begin with, like Aranessa or something. Melee defense 23 is a nerf. This is balanced by Frenzy, so we get melee attack plus 10, weapon strength and charge bonus plus 10%, immunity to psychology, all lasting until leadership is below... it's unbreakable. Never mind. Mustard gas flavor. Spawn of Nurgle comes at 1000 gold equivalent, 250 upkeep, because Frenzy is weighted that strongly. Health of 9632 is a substantial boost. We're back to armor 10, by the way. Melee attack 31 is 5 worse, but every attack carries poison. Also, it looks like this, and the remaining monogod ones are in the high threat category to defy splash. Interesting. Melee defense 33 is obviously pretty good compared. This is on a unit that's still dishing out weapon strength 170. Moreover, it has the Cloud of Flies passive, so after being in the mosh pit for 15 seconds, it gets plus 9 to its own melee defense. Despite that armor, if you can even call it that. The damage coming out, combined with the defense stopping damage from going in with melee, is pretty formidable. If you can get that melee attack up at all, wow. Great flavor! Slaanesh is also 1000 recruit, 10 armor, adds 5% physical resistance as we'd expect. Speed 47 and charge speed 83 are 5 better in both cases. Each attack inflicts Soporific Musk for -5 melee attack and melee defense for the foe, which is awesome except against the few units in the game with immunity to contact effects. This variant has Strider, so will fight amongst trees, without penalty, not just phase through them like the Beastmen ones, and has Devastating Flanker, and thank goodness I looked harder because it still looks like immunity to flanking on the unit card. Ugh. You could argue that I saved the best for last. Spawn of Tzeentch not only comes with 1000 barrier hit points, same 1000 recruit price, not only does every blow carry magical attack to break through physical resistance, but each blow carries sundered armor for -30 armor for 10 seconds, and they hit a lot faster than every 10 seconds. Not only does this help large swaths of your fellow Chaos forces, it helps the Spawn themselves do more damage. Yes, they do more armor piercing now, but this is still hugely helpful with the consistency of outgoing damage. That's it for the special blueberry sauce, but what sauce? Oh yeah, I do RRs now. The only spawn one is the Wyrd Spawn, which is based on the Tzeentch one we just covered, even though it's fully available in the Warriors of Chaos rosters where applicable. Recruited for 1500 gold equivalent and 325 upkeep, this differs in that it has 20% physical resistance, which is not the norm. It's not listed as high threat, so splash should work normally against them if the splash target size is large or greater. Melee attack is 45 or 9 better. Magical attack and sundered armor per usual. Melee defense 36 is 8 better. This is due to being rank 9. Finally, it causes terror without a tech for it, which means easier access to terror along the way. All in all, very good, because the Sun Ring can't help but be good. The resistance is very helpful, unless you're fighting a Tzeentch faction, am I right? Okay, back to the Undivided factions as the baseline. In the redline skills, Monstrous Strength at 3 pips grants melee attack plus 8 and weapon strength plus 10%. Both are pouring oil on the fire and giving Spawn a big boost in practice, but not every lord is going to spec into this skill. At rank 7 and above, Spawn benefit from freakish mutations. Yeah, fitting. Leadership is irrelevant, melee attack plus 5 and ward save plus 5% sure are relevant. In the Undivided tech tree, 1,000 Twisted Blessings causes terror to Spawn. And by default, that's it. Though, to be perfectly blunt, that's quite nice. Your access to Spawn is going to exceed your access to traditional terror units by a lot. So how do we use Chaos Spawn, generally speaking? Lacking real armor, lacking any kind of missile weapon, this higher speed, higher impact brawling unit is very good at brawling but very bad at resisting being picked apart by even basic arrows, though handgunners are no more efficient against them, and indeed are less efficient than archers. So you don't want to use them to chase skirmishers that aren't already being trapped. You don't want them sitting back and taking arrows like this without consequence. And you don't want them chasing things they won't catch that can shoot at them, even if not on horseback. It used to be you really wanted to consciously avoid the really high armor units, but at this point, no. While using them against cavalry, even engaged cavalry, is questionable because the cavalry can disengage a lot easier than most other things, something that was not always true in older game versions. This is basically a monstrous infantry version of Gore Herd, so my eternal Gore Herd rule applies. Get the package into contact with the enemy line and work it out from there. No fight is ever worse than lack of a fight. Now that they hit even harder, you want them to get in, do their thing, and you, the general, get to worry about every other problem after that. They'll do Spawn things. You do everything that is not a Spawn thing, and the army may win. While it is ideal for the Spawn to flail around in a mixed melee with your infantry fighting around them, they don't have to start that way, as in you don't need to try too hard to let the Chaos Warriors keep pace. They're slow. What you're trying to do is disrupt and scatter the front line, and when a hole exists, because you created it, to go after the missile line. You take that opportunity if it is profitable. If there isn't one, or it isn't a profitable opportunity, just keep them involved with as much raw anarchy as possible and hope for the best. Since you can't rely on the moment-to-moment result, the idea is to make them rip so much out of the enemy longer term, you still prosper. Unbreakable still means something, as long as the rest of your army can do stuff. Sometimes the enemy will try to gang up on Spawn because they think, okay, here's the easy kill, we can wipe this out. Yeah, well, that works when the Spawn are isolated and lonely. Doing that with an angry Chaos army banging on the rest of you means the enemy loses the Spawn, and you lose the battle and the army. In the end, you have to treat Spawn as expendable fanatics. They're just not good enough for you to obsess over losing them. They are good enough for you to obsess over getting them into the fight where they can produce. The main way to preserve them is to prevent the enemy from missile ganking them. So, tie down the infantry and roll into the back with your fast stuff. For Spawn, the best defense really is offense, because they don't have much of a choice, and neither do you. So make the right choice and just be cunning and crafty about it, and use Spawn as force multipliers that make the rest of your stuff better. I mean, do Chaos Warriors with shields dish out this kind of damage? No! So, mix the two and watch the horrors that unfold. Take care and have fun ripping the enemy's limbs off, because that's kind of how this plays out.